It started one rainy evening in Boston, when Michael Donovan found himself buried under stacks of legal documents in the firm's dimly lit conference room. As a junior associate at a powerful corporate law firm, he had grown accustomed to the long nights, the pressure, the quiet but constant political maneuvering. Yet that night felt different. His hands trembled slightly as he read the newest case update, one that would pit his firm against a longtime client for reasons shrouded in silence and strategy. Michael wasn't naive. He knew the legal world wasn't only about justice, it was about leverage. But until recently, he hadn't realized just how deep the manipulation ran, how influence could be dressed in polished smiles and silk ties. His mentor, Russell Greene, had been slowly revealing the layers of this truth. But it wasn't until Russell handed him a worn, annotated copy of The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli that everything started to make sense. "Study this," Russell had told him, leaning back in his leather chair, hands steepled. "And understand that power isn't about being liked. It's about being effective." Michael had laughed nervously then, thinking it was just one of Russell's philosophical musings. But that book would change everything. Inside those pages were sentences so sharp they seemed to pierce through the illusion of morality and power. There was one quote in particular that echoed in Michael's mind that night. "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." That sentence haunted him, especially now, as he realized he was about to be used as a pawn in a larger game. His firm was about to betray a loyal client, an old man named Joseph Kleinman, who had trusted them with his family's legacy for over 2 decades. Michael had handled Kleinman's estate files for months and had even met his daughter, and a woman who spoke of integrity and trust as if they were sacred relics. And now, because of a merger that promised more influence and more power, the firm was dropping Kleinman like a forgotten relic. Michael wasn't sure what to do. He wanted to believe in loyalty. He wanted to be the kind of lawyer who stood for something more than quarterly profits. But then another Machiavelli quote echoed in his thoughts. "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." That line stung. Was that what Russell had been trying to teach him all along? That morality had no place in the upper echelons of power? That truth was only convenient when it benefited the powerful? 1 week later, Michael was invited to a closed-door meeting with his senior partners. It was the kind of meeting that signaled a make-or-break moment. He sat across from Russell, who offered no warmth, just strategy. "You've been doing good work," said Martin Crowley, the firm's founding partner. "And now we need someone discreet. Someone who understands what it means to win." Michael didn't respond right away. He felt the weight of his future pressing down on him. "We want you to spearhead the legal pushback against Kleinman's countersuit," Crowley continued. "We've already anticipated his response." Michael swallowed hard. "You want me to dismantle his claim?" Crowley nodded. "We need to end this cleanly, strategically." And that was it. No room for emotion. No space for questioning. Just cold precision. Michael remembered another quote from The Prince. "The ends justify the means." He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in his apartment, the book open on his lap, trying to reconcile what he had once believed about right and wrong with what he was now being asked to do. And the more he read, the more he began to understand that Machiavelli wasn't encouraging cruelty. He was revealing the hard truths behind influence, truth, and the human tendency towards self-preservation. The next day, Michael showed up to work earlier than usual. His hair neatly styled, suit pressed, briefcase in hand. But something in his gaze had changed, no longer wide-eyed, no longer confused. He had made a decision. He approached Russell's office and closed the door behind him. "I'll do it," he said. Russell looked up, a small smile forming. "Good. I knew you would." But what Michael didn't say was that he had already spoken to Anne Kleinman. He had met her the night before at a quiet restaurant near Cambridge. They talked for hours, her eyes teary but composed. "My father trusted your firm," she had said. "He believed in your values." Michael had only nodded. He knew then that he could play this game. Not just survive it, but master it. He'd been naive to think that the world of power was built on fairness. But Machiavelli had stripped away that illusion. What remained was a new clarity. Power wasn't about who was right, it was about who was prepared. Over the next few weeks, Michael played his role to perfection. He delivered updates to the firm, executed documents, and drafted motions. But behind the scenes, he was feeding key information to and her legal team. He never left a trace, never made a misstep. He became what Machiavelli had described as the fox and the lion, cunning and strong in equal measure. When the firm realized the Kleinman family had secured an injunction that exposed internal communications suggesting foul play, panic erupted. An emergency meeting was called. Michael was summoned. Russell's face was pale. How did they get this? Michael leaned back in the chair, calm and composed. Sometimes, he said, the people closest to the throne are the ones holding the blade. Crowley stared at him, disbelief growing in his eyes. You leaked it? Michael smiled faintly. I played the game. There was nothing they could do. The media got wind of the betrayal, and within days, senior partners were stepping down. Michael handed in his resignation just as the firm was beginning to implode. He walked out of the building without looking back. Months passed. Michael began consulting for legal ethics organizations and eventually started his own practice, small but with clients who valued trust over dominance. He often thought about Machiavelli. He still had the book, now even more annotated, its pages marked with red and blue ink. Quotes like, "A wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men, and to imitate those who have been supreme," had taken on deeper meaning. He hadn't become ruthless. He hadn't abandoned his values. But he had learned something vital. Seeing people clearly, their ambitions, their fears, their tendencies, was not cynicism. It was strategy. One afternoon, Anne visited his new office, her father in tow. The elder Kleinman looked Freylia now, but there was a peace in his eyes. You did the right thing, Joseph told him, gripping his hand. Michael didn't reply. He just nodded. Anne smiled. You could have walked away and taken their offer. But you didn't. Michael looked out the window at the Boston skyline. I learned from the best, he said. And not just in law. I learned what it means to use truth strategically. Years later, Michael published a book that would become a bestseller in law schools and business departments alike. The title, The Prince of Boston, Power, People, and the Law. It was filled with stories from his experience, each chapter built around a Machiavellian quote, not to promote manipulation, but to help readers understand how the world really worked. He had learned that the human desire for comfort often blinds us from uncomfortable truths. But embracing those truths, seeing power and people without,